cable to do your SensorPod Plus calibration, and you will need a computer with the Xsense program. So this is the program that you'll need. So I'll bring my computer over to the pool with us. And we can get a SensorPod Plus calibration done. I like to give myself a little bit extra tether so that I've got the room to kind of move the ROV around. Always disable the motors before you start trying to move the ROV. I know that this surface is flat enough for me to get the one portion of the calibration done. So I will go to the menu, calibration, calibrate IMU, and I will do the gyro calibration first. Accept that. So now everything is pretty level. And now is where I will go to the magnetic calibration. Start calibration. This will disable the SensorPod Plus so that it can be calibrated and it'll talk to the computer. Confirm that. And then you're going to want to select on the configured device. And right now, the SensorPod Plus is talking, and I need the null modem cable plugged into the controller. And plugged into the computer. And once you have the cable plugged in, it will say paired port. You want to select the USB port that you have it plugged into. I have it plugged into the top, so I select top USB port. So now the controller is allowing the SensorPod Plus to talk to the computer. I have the magnetic field mapping program open. Using motion tracker, you want to select scan. Sometimes it won't find it. I will just hit scan again. It now found it, so you can use, you see that it's the serial number of this specific SensorPod Plus. That's selected. And you hit next. You want to make sure that you have a folder selected where all of those calibrations will go and save. So just make sure that you know where you're saving that to. You can change it. I have it saved just in my documents folder that I can find the SensorPod Plus magnetic calibrations. You hit start. And now that you're here, you can start doing the calibration. I like to make sure that I remove my phone and any keys or anything out of my pockets. I have composite steel or composite footwear, so they're not steel toes, so I can keep my shoes on. As long as you're far enough away from it, the shoes shouldn't affect it. But the other thing to note is once you start this calibration process, it will automatically disable the motors. In the water it goes. I like to keep it away from the wall, and I use the handle to kind of help me start. So I'll start it facing away from me. There's 3 different axes that you have to rotate it on. So I do a full 360 one way, a barrel roll, and then a front flip. Then you move it to its side. Again, I like to do the 360. The barrel roll. And the front flip. Then I move it so that it's camera head down. Do your 360. And then I just kind of let it sit, do its thing. And that's where I'll come back over to the computer, process. And then you want to look down here at your maximum error. Wants to be 0.05 or less. So my 0.019 is a very good score. You then come over here and say write to selected device. Yes, you're sure. Now it's written to that device and the calibration is saved to the SensorPod Plus. When you're doing the calibration, you don't have to have it completely perfect and stationary. If there's a little bit of rocking and movement as you're doing your rotations, I found that you'll get a better score. There's, again, making sure that the things are out of your pockets. I know you guys have tried many different variations of what you had on or not. But yeah, that little bit of movement I find kind of helps figure itself out. Making sure that it's not hitting anything during the process. And just, it took a few times for myself to get to this point, but after you kind of figure out how to move it, you'll end up all of a sudden, it'll all just start working and flowing for you going forward. The retrieval handle that goes on the back of the Revolution, the metal in it that we found is that the supplier supplied us with a ferrous material, which it should have been stainless and be non-ferrous, can cause interference with the SensorPod Plus, which will then affect your calibration and potentially not be able to get a good calibration score. So you'd have to remove that handle to be able to calibrate the SensorPod Plus and have it function the way that it's supposed to.